Okay, welcome back to my series on the monster processor walkthrough for Knime. Um, you're still here, so that means something. Um, I was listening to my previous videos and I noticed that there's some crackling going on. I don't have a production quality mic, so hopefully it's not too bad for you. Um, if I do more of these than just this series, I'll maybe see about changing that. I also noticed I've got a little bit of a cough going on. I'm trying not to blow yours out. I apologize. But let's get at this here. Last time we were talking about consolidating all of the monster data into one big table set. And so that is going to get passed into kind of two different branches. The first branch is writing all of the parent notes. So that's the first thing that we're going to do over here. Um, so as you see, we have all of the data consolidated for every monster, and every monster now has a column with a parent folder note name and uh, a parent folder name and a parent folder note name. Um, what we want to do is we want to write those out and only those out at this point. So, so this meta node right here is going to do that operation for us. Thing is we don't need all of those monster columns. The only thing we need really is the sheet, the parent folder, and the folder node. So we use this column filter object right here to just take only those columns that we need right here. And those are the only things that are going to be spewed to the output of this node. And so that's what we've done right here. Using the node monitor, you can see down here we've got this list, but you'll also notice that we've got multiple entries, one for each monster. And that's not going to do. We don't want to write the Aspis folder note like 3 times or 4 times. We only want to do that once. So to do that, we need to use their duplicate row filter object right here. And this is essentially like doing a select distinct in SQL. What this is going to do is it's going to say, you know, again, what are the objects that we want to spit out, and we're going to trim out the duplicates. Now, looking at this, I could probably just get rid of that first column filter and just do this directly. This was kind of built iteratively, so you know that might be something that I optimize a little bit later. But what we're doing here is we're spitting this out and we end up with a unique list of sheets, parent folders, and folder notes. With that list coming out, we're going to dump that into another, basically for each iterator, it's going to take every row of that table and it's going to convert those columns into variables. Excuse me. And so those get, for every record, we're going to get a sheet, the sheet it's on, the parent folder note, or the parent folder name, and then the folder note name. And so for every set of variables there, we're going to then go write out a folder note. So we've seen a variable expression before. We're going to come here and we're going to write the folder note name and we're going to write the parent node name here. Each one of these is set up to determine whether or not we are working on a kind of alphabetic, like a top level folder, or if we're talking about a child folder. So for a top level folder, like the A, the folder note name and the parent name will be the same. And so if that's the case, all we need to do is write out like a.md, for example. However, if we're dealing with dragons, then our parent folder would be a D, our folder note name would be dragon. So if that's the case, then we have to write out like D whack dragon whack dragon.md. So if we go to evaluate this just to see where we're at, this is going to be for the first record coming out of that that filter. So we're going to see that that is A/AMD. But that's what that does here. And the parent node does something similar. It's checking to see whether or not the sheet and the folder name match. And if so, what we're going to do is we're going to set the parent node to be the name of the parent folder name. So like, you know, A, B, C, D, E, that sort of thing. Actually, that's not quite true. What's going to happen here is we're going to see if the sheet name matches the folder name. So like if the sheet is monsters and the folder name is A, then we're going to use the parent folder. Otherwise, we're going to use the monster sheet here. So when we evaluate this, we end up getting monsters for the first stuff. If we see dragon, then it'll say dragon, you know, that sort of thing. And then we have to convert those, we have to convert variables to path so that we can write out the appropriate folder name. So if we've created A.MD, we need to convert that to a path so that it can go out. And we're doing that right here. And once we've gotten that set, so now we have our path, what we're going to do is we're going to read in our template. Now this is this is a new node. We haven't seen this one before. Well, unless you've watched Josh's video, because he's used this for his templates. But what we're doing here is we're double clicking on it so it opens, and we're pointing to the actual template for the folder notes. This is controlled by a passed-in variable, and that variable is sitting right here. It's that folder note template path. And then that brings it in line by line as if it was a CSV. And so then we see every line from that file. So it's treating it like a table. It's kind of cheating, but I like it, so it works. And so we get all of these, and you'll notice that at the top we've got these two replaceable parameters. These are really the only two things that we're looking to modify in this whole template at this point. So we bring that in, and if we execute it, we can now see that that is all sitting right here. After that, we're going to come in and we are going to insert our parent object. And this is a common construct for the majority of the work that this thing does, is it comes in and you'll notice that we have a flow variable right here. This is the list of all of the variables that are available. So these are all the variables that have come in from this red line right here. And then you'll notice that we have one column called modified body text. This is the column that is being spit out from that line reader right here. So, and I gave it that name right there just to distinguish it from the original, so that it was something that we're actually targeting. So we come in here, we come into this string manipulation node, and what we're going to do is we're going to just wrap that line, that modified body text line, with two replace calls. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for that tilde wrapped parent value, and we're going to replace it with the flow variable's parent node name, which you see right here. And notice it's got a current value of monsters. So I'm going to replace tilde parent tilde with monsters. Now, one thing that I'm doing as kind of a safety here is if we don't find that term, what this thing does by default is it returns the value missing. And well, I don't want that. So I wrap this first replace with a second replace that just gets rid of it and turns it into an empty string. So that's how most of these constructs work. They're all just glorified string replacements. So if I run this right now and I execute it, you'll now see that my row says monsters for parent, and the first element of the up array also says parent. And you notice that on row 9 here, I still have a placeholder for the folder note name. That's what this next guy is doing. This one right here is doing pretty much the exact same thing that we just did, but it's doing it against the folder note name. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this is going to work on every row of the file. So this string replacement, it looks at row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, it goes all the way down, and it does it for every row in the entire file. So you leverage that for if you want to put that in multiple places, that makes it very straightforward. So I'm going to execute that. Now we've replaced everything in here that we need. And so you notice that the folder note is now A, the parent is monsters, and now we need to know whether or not we want to actually write the file. So for that, we're going to come here and we're going to use this Java snippet, and we want to see if the file exists out in the wild. So I'm using a file object here. I had to do an import for Java's I/O to do that. That's where the file object lives, is in Java I/O. So import that, create a file object, and point it to the folder note path. This is a variable right here. You notice its current value is pointing out to the file that we're going to generate. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that overwrite folder notes value that I referenced earlier, and I'm going to see if it's true. If it's true, then I'm setting this folder note exists equal to top. Okay. In an earlier video, I explained the way their if switch works. It works on variables for top or bottom. It doesn't work on Boolean, true or false. So we're setting this to top. So my convention in my brain is that the thing on top is true, the thing on the bottom is false. So that's what I'm doing here. So if we've set to overwrite, we're always going to overwrite. Doesn't matter, right? But if overwrite is not set to true, then what we're going to do is we're going to go check to see whether or not the file that we looked for up here actually exists. If it exists and we get down here, we don't want to overwrite it. So I'm going to set this value to bottom. And then if it doesn't exist, we'll set it to top. So this just tells us which branch of that is of the upcoming if switch we're going to go down. Okay. So if we run this on a.cmd, we come here, and if we look at our flow variable right here, we see that we're going to go down to the bottom. That's because I don't have overwrite values turned on. So if I don't overwrite that, this if switch is configured just like the other one that I showed you previously. We're giving it the variable that we care about. In this case, folder note exists. And what it's saying is when I run this, it's not going to go up the top and write out the file. It's going to go down the bottom, and it's going to log to the console that we're skipping. So if we come here, you'll see that when I execute, it says this exists, skipping. Okay. Now, cool thing about the iterative nature of this process is if I came to my demo vault and I went to here, you'll notice I have that a.cmd. If I deleted that right there, and then I reset this node and reran it, I didn't affect anything up to this point. I'm just going from here forward. At this point, it's now going to say top because the folder, the file isn't there anymore, right? So now if I run this, now it's going to go to the top node up here. And I have another logger here. That's just going to tell me that, you know, if we're working on the first row, then write something out that says that we're going to write the file. Ideally, I'd want it after the writer, but this has no outputs, so I can't do that. So I have to do it beforehand. So if I run that, now you notice it says we're writing this file. And then if I go to the CSV writer right here, let me just do this. And actually, let's do it like this. So you'll notice I have no A file here. But as soon as I execute, now the file shows up. So that's the folder note writer. Now this is pretty much just a placeholder. Now if I want to write all the rest of them, I can just come to this loop and hit execute, and you'll see that it runs for every record in that table. Okay? And so now we've got all of those. Now that tried to rewrite all of these as well, but since I have that overwrite value not, you know, set to false, it's not going to overwrite those. But that's the way that works. All right. Enjoy. My next one, I'm going to go through the process of writing the monster files. It is essentially the same, mostly similar. There are some odd quirks involved for dealing with special characters that I'll deal with as well. But until next time.